The morning sky over Nevada turned bright orange as something massive fell from space. Commander Jake Morrison was drinking coffee at Nellis Air Force Base when the alarm started screaming. He dropped his cup and ran to the command center where dozens of screens showed radar contacts that made no sense. Something huge was coming down fast, and it was not from Earth. The object crashed in the desert 40 miles north of Las Vegas with a sound like thunder that lasted for 10 minutes. Jake grabbed his team and flew out in helicopters to see what had fallen from the sky. As they got closer, he could not believe what he saw through the dust and smoke. A ship sat in the desert sand. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The metal hull stretched almost 2 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide. Strange symbols covered its surface, and parts of it still glowed with heat from falling through the atmosphere. This was definitely not human technology. Jake landed his helicopter and stepped out with his team. Chief Engineer Lisa Barnes walked beside him, her eyes wide as she stared at the alien ship. Dr. San Rodriguez, their best scientist for studying strange things, already had his equipment out and was taking readings. They approached the ship carefully. The hull was made of some kind of metal that seemed to change color in the sunlight. Jake reached out and touched it. The surface felt warm and smooth, like nothing he had ever felt before. Lisa pulled out her scanner and shook her head at the readings. The ship had a hole torn in its side where it had hit the ground. Jake looked inside and saw corridors that stretched into darkness. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from the metal itself. Everything was built for creatures taller than humans, with doorways and controls sized for beings maybe 8 feet tall. They found the bridge after walking through empty corridors for 20 minutes. The room was huge, with chairs and control panels arranged in a circle. In the center sat a device that projected a blue hologram. As they got closer, the hologram flickered to life and showed the image of an alien being. The creature looked almost human, but with gray skin and large black eyes. It wore what seemed to be a military uniform, covered in strange symbols. When it spoke, the words came out in a language they did not understand, but somehow Jake knew what it meant. The ship was translating for them. The alien in the hologram looked tired and angry. It said its name was Captain Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. The ship was called the Starfire, and it had been damaged in a battle above Earth. The captain explained that the ship's main drive was broken beyond repair, and the vessel was now worthless. He ordered his crew to abandon ship and leave it on this primitive planet where the local inhabitants would never understand its technology. Captain Veltar looked directly at them through the hologram as if he could see them. He said that humans were too simple to comprehend Zephyrian science and would probably worship the ship as some kind of god. The captain seemed to find this idea amusing. He ended the message by saying that the Empire would return someday to properly deal with the primitive humans who dared to live so close to Zephyrian space. The hologram faded, leaving Jake and his team standing in silence. Lisa was already examining the control panels, running her hands over surfaces that responded to her touch with soft chimes and flashing lights. Dr. Rodriguez was taking readings on everything he could find. Jake called the president immediately. President Helen Carter listened to his report without interruption, then ordered the area sealed off and classified at the highest level. Within hours, military trucks surrounded the crash site and scientists began arriving from all over the country. Lisa Barnes spent the first week mapping the ship from top to bottom. She found storage rooms full of equipment she did not recognize, engine rooms with machinery that hummed with power, and laboratories containing devices that seemed to be centuries ahead of human technology. But she also found something else. The ship was not as broken as the aliens thought. Lisa crawled through the engine sections with a team of engineers and discovered that the main drive was intact. The alien captain had been wrong about the damage. The drive system was complex, beyond anything humans had built, but it was not destroyed. Dr. Rodriguez made another important discovery. The ship's computer systems were still active and learning. Every time humans interacted with the controls, the ship's artificial intelligence studied their movements and responses. It was beginning to understand human language and behavior patterns. Jake established a permanent base around the ship. President Carter authorized a secret project to study the vessel and see if humans could learn to use its technology. The project was called Resurrection, and Jake was put in charge of it. The first month was frustrating. Human tools could barely scratch the alien metal, and most of the ship's systems refused to respond to human commands. But Lisa Barnes was stubborn. She spent 18 hours a day studying alien engineering, trying to understand how their technology worked. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. The Zephyrian technology was incredibly advanced, but also rigid. Everything had to work exactly as designed, with no room for changes or improvements. When something broke, their solution was to replace it with an identical part rather than adapt or repair it. Dr. Rodriguez discovered that the alien computer systems worked differently than human computers. Instead of following programmed instructions, they seemed to think and make decisions. But they could only think in ways their creators had designed. They could not be creative or solve problems in new ways. Lisa realized that this might be why. The aliens had abandoned the ship. Their technology was too perfect to adapt to unexpected problems. When the drive system developed a small malfunction during battle, their perfect technology could not work around it. But human technology was different. Humans were used to making things work, even when they were broken. Jake watched his team work and began to understand something the aliens had not expected. Humans might not have technology as advanced as the Zephyrians, but they had something else. They had the ability to adapt, to solve problems in new ways, and to make broken things work again. The ship in the desert was about to teach the galaxy something about human determination. 6 months after the crash, the alien ship had become the most important place on Earth. Dr. Alex Kim arrived from MIT with a team of physicists who specialized in quantum mechanics. Rachel Stone came from NASA with her knowledge of advanced materials. Together with Lisa Barnes, they formed the core of the engineering team that would change everything. Alex spent his first week studying the ship's power systems. The quantum drive that Captain Veltar had declared broken was actually working perfectly. The problem was not with the drive itself, but with how it connected to the rest of the ship. The Zephyrian systems expected the quantum field to remain perfectly stable, but quantum fields naturally fluctuate during space travel. Alex explained to Jake that it was like trying to balance a pencil on its point. The Zephyrian technology could do it, but only under perfect conditions. If anything disturbed the balance even slightly, the whole system would shut down rather than adapt. Human technology was more like riding a bicycle. It was designed to work with constant small adjustments and corrections. Rachel Stone made the next breakthrough. She discovered that the alien metal could be modified using human techniques. The Zephyrians had created materials that were stronger than anything on Earth, but they had made them so perfect that they could not be changed or improved. Rachel found that by adding small amounts of human alloys, she could make the alien metal even stronger and more flexible. Lisa Barnes worked day and night to understand the ship's control systems. She discovered that the alien computers were incredibly powerful, but could only think in straight lines. They could solve complex problems, but only if those problems had clear right and wrong answers. Human problems were messier. Humans had to deal with situations where there was no perfect solution, only the best choice available. Colonel Pete Collins arrived with the first group of military personnel who had learned to operate the ship. Pete was a Marine who had flown everything from helicopters to space shuttles. He brought with him pilot Amy Foster, who had set records for reaction time and spatial awareness. Communications specialist Tony Walsh joined them, along with tactical officer Ben Carter. Amy Foster was the first human to successfully interface with the alien flight controls. The ship's systems had been designed for Zephyrian neural patterns. But Amy discovered that human brains worked even better. Where Zephyrian minds followed logical pathways, human minds could make intuitive leaps and creative connections that the alien designers had never imagined. Tony Walsh cracked the ship's communication systems by approaching them like a puzzle, rather than a computer program. The Zephyrians had built their communications to be perfectly clear and efficient, but Tony found ways to make them faster and more flexible by adding human-style redundancies and error correction. Ben Carter studied the ship's weapons and defensive systems. He discovered that the aliens had built their weapons to be precise and predictable, but human tactics relied on unpredictability and adaptation. Ben began modifying the targeting systems to work with human combat instincts rather than against them. Dr. Rodriguez made a discovery that changed everything. He found that the ship's artificial intelligence was not just learning human language and behavior. It was beginning to think like humans. The alien AI had been programmed to be logical and efficient, but exposure to human crews was teaching it to be creative and adaptive. Lisa Barnes realized that they could create hybrid systems that combined the best of both technologies. She began building new power couplings that used Zephyrian efficiency with human adaptability. The result was technology that was more powerful than either species could create alone. The first successful test came when Alex Kim managed to restart the quantum drive using human modifications. Instead of requiring perfect stability, the new hybrid system worked with quantum fluctuations. It was like the difference between a rigid bridge that breaks in an earthquake and a flexible one that bends but does not fall. Amy Foster took the ship on its first flight since the crash. She lifted it only a few feet off the ground, but that short flight proved that humans could not only repair alien technology, but improve it. The ship responded to her commands faster and more smoothly than it ever had for its original Zephyrian crew. Rachel Stone's new hybrid materials made the ship stronger than its original design. The hull could now repair itself when damaged using human nanotechnology combined with alien materials. Small tears would seal themselves, and damaged sections would regrow like living tissue. Pete Collins trained the first human crew to work as a team aboard the alien ship. The Zephyrians had operated their ships with rigid hierarchy and precise procedures. Pete taught his people to work together more flexibly, with each crew member able to adapt to changing situations. The ship's AI, now thinking more like a human, began suggesting improvements to its own systems. It recommended changes that no Zephyrian engineer would have considered because they violated the principles of perfect design. But these imperfect solutions often worked better than the original perfect ones. Jake Morrison watched his teams work and realized they were creating something unprecedented. The ship was becoming more than the sum of its parts. It was no longer purely Zephyrian technology operated by humans, but something new. A fusion of two different approaches to problem solving. Lisa Barnes ran the first full system test after 8 months of modifications. Every system on the ship performed better than its original specifications. The quantum drive operated at 150% of its designed efficiency. The hull was 30% stronger than before. The weapons could hit targets with precision that amazed even the humans who had modified them. Dr. Alex Kim calculated that the ship could now travel faster and farther than any vessel in the Zephyrian fleet. The modifications had not just repaired the damage from the crash. They had created something superior to anything the aliens had ever built. Amy Foster piloted the ship through increasingly complex maneuvers. She could make it dance through the sky like a fighter jet, despite its massive size. The ship responded to her thoughts as much as her controls, thanks to the neural interface improvements. But their success attracted attention they had not expected. Long-range sensors detected ships approaching Earth from deep space. The signals matched Zephyrian technology, and they were coming fast. Jake called an emergency meeting. President Carter attended via secure video link as Lisa Barnes explained what they had accomplished. The abandoned alien ship was now more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had ever built. But the aliens were coming back, probably to collect what they thought was worthless scrap metal. Pete Collins recommended that they hide their modifications and pretend the ship was still broken. But Jake disagreed. He had seen what his people could accomplish when they refused to accept limitations. The Zephyrians had made a mistake when they underestimated human ingenuity. Now they would learn that their worthless scrap had become something they could never have imagined. The time for hiding was over. Humanity was about to announce itself to the galaxy. The Zephyrian scout ship Dominion dropped out of hyperspace near Earth's moon, like a predator returning to check its kill. Admiral Kexron stood on the bridge of his sleek vessel, expecting to find the primitive planet unchanged and his abandoned ship reduced to scrap metal by the local inhabitants. Instead, his sensors immediately detected something that made his 4 hearts skip beats. The Starfire was not only intact, but broadcasting on communication frequencies that should have been impossible for damaged Zephyrian technology. The quantum signatures were all wrong, showing power levels that exceeded the ship's original design. Specifications. Dr. Sam Rodriguez received the first transmission from the alien vessel. He sat in the communications center that had been built around the Starfire, now designated as the Phoenix by its human crew. The message came through in perfect Zephyrian, which the ship's AI translated instantly. The alien admiral demanded to know who was operating Zephyrian technology without authorization. His voice carried the arrogance of a species that had conquered hundreds of worlds and never encountered resistance. He ordered the immediate cessation of all activity aboard the Starfire and demanded that the primitive inhabitants present themselves for questioning. Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral by President Carter, stood in the Phoenix's command center, surrounded by his hybrid human-alien technology. He looked at the faces of his crew. Lisa Barnes sat at the engineering station she had redesigned from the ground up. Amy Foster had her hands on flight controls that now responded to human neural patterns. Dr. Alex Kim monitored power systems that operated beyond anything the Zephyrians had achieved. Jake opened a communication channel to the alien ship. He spoke slowly and clearly, knowing that his words would be heard by beings who considered humans to be barely intelligent animals. He told Admiral Kexron that the ship was no longer abandoned property but had been claimed and improved by Earth's inhabitants. The response came back within seconds. Admiral Kexron's image appeared on the main screen, showing a tall gray figure with large black eyes that burned with fury. He stated that no primitive species had the right to touch Zephyrian technology, much less modify it. He demanded the immediate return of the Starfire and threatened military action if his orders were not obeyed. Maria Lopez, the lead linguist, worked frantically to establish better communication protocols. She had spent months learning Zephyrian language and culture from the ship's database. She knew that the aliens viewed any modification of their technology as contamination that violated their fundamental beliefs about perfection and purity. Jeff Thompson, the cultural analyst, explained to Jake that the Zephyrians saw themselves as the pinnacle of evolution. Their technology was considered perfect and unchangeable. The idea that a primitive species could improve upon their designs was not just insulting, but impossible according to their worldview. Jake made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Instead of backing down, he invited Admiral Kexron to come aboard the Phoenix and see what humans had accomplished. He promised the alien commander a demonstration that would prove human capabilities. Admiral Kexron accepted the invitation, but only because he was curious to see how badly the primitives had damaged Zephyrian technology. He brought a small team of engineers and soldiers, confident that he would find jury-rigged repairs and crude modifications that insulted the elegance of a Zephyrian design. The alien admiral stepped aboard the Phoenix and immediately sensed that something was wrong. The ship felt different. The quantum fields were stronger and more stable than they should have been. The air itself hummed with power that exceeded the Starfire's original capabilities. Lisa Barnes led the tour, explaining each modification with the enthusiasm of an engineer proud of her work. She showed Admiral Kexron the new power couplings that combined human adaptability with Zephyrian efficiency. She demonstrated the self-repairing hull that could heal damage automatically. She revealed the upgraded quantum drive that operated at levels the Zephyrians had never achieved. With each revelation, Admiral Kexron's confidence cracked a little more. The human modifications were not crude repairs, but elegant improvements that solved problems the Zephyrians had never even recognized. The ship was faster, stronger, and more capable than anything in the Zephyrian fleet. Dr. Alex Kim showed the alien admiral the quantum drive modifications. He explained how human engineering had solved the stability problem that had caused the original malfunction. Instead of fighting quantum fluctuations, the new system used them to generate even more power. Amy Foster demonstrated the ship's new flight capabilities. She took the Phoenix through maneuvers that would have been impossible with the original Zephyrian systems. The massive ship moved like a fighter craft, responding to her thoughts as much as her controls. Admiral Kexron watched in growing horror as his fundamental beliefs about Zephyrian superiority crumbled. These primitive humans had not just repaired his technology, they had made it better. They had achieved what his most brilliant engineers had said was impossible. The alien admiral's shock turned to rage. He declared that the humans had contaminated pure Zephyrian technology with their inferior methods. He stated that the ship was now an abomination that violated the natural order of the galaxy. He demanded its immediate destruction to prevent the spread of this technological heresy. Jake Morrison stood his ground. He told Admiral Kexron that humans would not surrender the Phoenix or apologize for their improvements. The ship had been abandoned as worthless, and humans had given it new life. It now belonged to Earth and would be used to protect humanity's interests. The confrontation escalated when Admiral Kexron tried to take control of the Phoenix's systems using Zephyrian override codes. But Lisa Barnes had anticipated this possibility. The ship's AI, now thinking like a human, refused to recognize the alien commands. It had chosen its new crew and would not betray them. D.R. Rodriguez attempted to negotiate a peaceful solution. He offered to share human innovations with the Zephyrian Empire in exchange for recognition of Earth's sovereignty. But Admiral Kexron rejected any cooperation with what he considered a contaminated species. The alien admiral returned to his ship and immediately sent a message to the Zephyrian High Command. He reported that the primitive humans had committed technological blasphemy by improving upon perfect Zephyrian designs. He requested a full battle fleet to destroy the contaminated ship and teach the upstart species their proper place in the Yossi. Galactic Hierarchy. Jake Morrison knew that war was now inevitable. The Zephyrians could not accept that humans had surpassed their technology. Their pride and their entire belief system depended on maintaining their image of superiority over all other species. President Carter authorized full military mobilization, but everyone knew that Earth's conventional forces would be useless against an alien fleet. The Phoenix would have to stand alone against whatever the Zephyrian Empire could send. Lisa Barnes worked around the clock to complete the final modifications. She installed new weapon systems that combined human tactical thinking with alien technology. She upgraded the shields to levels that exceeded anything the Zephyrians had ever built. Amy Foster practiced combat maneuvers that pushed the Phoenix to its limits. She learned to use the ship's new capabilities in ways that no Zephyrian pilot would ever attempt. The rigid alien training would be no match for human creativity and adaptability. Jake Morrison assembled his crew for what might be their final mission. They had taken a worthless piece of alien scrap and turned it into something magnificent. Now they would have to prove that human determination could triumph over galactic tyranny. The Zephyrian battle fleet was already on its way. 12 ships crewed by warriors who had never known defeat. They came to destroy an abomination and restore the natural order of Zephyrian dominance. But they were about to discover that humans do not accept defeat easily. The Phoenix was ready for war. The Zephyrian battle fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 12 ships arranged in a pattern that had conquered star systems across the galaxy. Supreme Admiral Turval commanded from the flagship Eternal Glory, a massive dreadnought that had never retreated from battle in its 300-year service record. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet appear on the Phoenix's main screen. Each enemy ship was larger than anything Earth had ever built, bristling with weapons that could turn planets to glass. The combined firepower approaching Earth could destroy entire civilizations, and it was all focused on one converted alien. Ship crewed by humans who had never fought in space. Lisa Barnes ran final checks on all systems from her engineering station. Every modification she had made over the past year would be tested in the next few hours. The hybrid human Zephyrian technology had performed perfectly in simulations, but real combat would push everything beyond theoretical limits. Amy Foster sat at the helm, her hands steady on controls that had been redesigned to work with human reflexes rather than alien logic. She had trained for this moment using combat scenarios that no Zephyrian pilot would ever attempt. The Phoenix would fight like no ship in galactic history. Dr. Alex Kim monitored the quantum drive from his position at the science station. The power core that had been declared worthless by its original builders now generated energy levels that exceeded anything the approaching fleet could produce. Human engineering had turned alien perfection into something far greater. Colonel Pete Collins coordinated the weapon systems from the tactical station. The Phoenix carried armaments that combined Zephyrian precision with human adaptability. Each weapon could think and adjust its targeting in real time, learning from every shot fired. Supreme Admiral Turval opened communications with the Phoenix, his image filling the main screen with cold arrogance. He announced that the human ship would be destroyed for the crime of contaminating pure Zephyrian technology. He offered the crew one chance to abandon their vessel and surrender themselves for judgment. Jake Morrison responded with quiet confidence that surprised even his own crew. He told the alien admiral that humans did not surrender when they were protecting their home. The Phoenix would defend Earth against any threat, no matter how overwhelming the odds might appear. The battle began when Turval ordered his fleet to attack in the traditional Zephyrian formation. The 12 ships moved forward in perfect coordination, their weapons charging with energy that could be seen from Earth's surface. They approached the Phoenix like hunters surrounding prey. They had nowhere to run. Amy Foster proved them wrong immediately. She triggered the quantum drive in a way that Zephyrian technology had never been designed to handle. The Phoenix vanished from normal space for exactly 3 seconds, reappearing behind the alien formation before their sensors could track the movement. The human ship opened fire on the odd Zephyrian rear guard before the aliens could react. Lisa Barnes' hybrid weapons struck with precision that exceeded anything the enemy had encountered. 2 alien ships suffered critical damage before they could even turn to face their attacker. Dr. Alex Kim calculated a new jump vector in seconds, something that would have taken Zephyrian computers hours to process safely. The Phoenix vanished again, appearing on the fleet's flank to deliver another devastating attack before jumping away from the return fire. Supreme Admiral Turville watched in growing confusion as his perfect formation collapsed under attacks that came from impossible angles. Zephyrian tactics relied on calculated positioning and overwhelming firepower, but the Phoenix fought like a ghost that could strike anywhere and disappear before retaliation. Colonel Pete Collins coordinated the Phoenix's weapons with an adaptability that alien commanders could not comprehend. Instead of following predetermined attack patterns, he adjusted strategy in real time based on enemy responses. The ship's weapons learned from each engagement, becoming more effective with every shot. The alien fleet tried to surround the Phoenix using their superior numbers, but Amy Foster refused to be trapped. She used the ship's enhanced maneuverability to dance between enemy vessels, always staying one step ahead of their targeting computers. Lisa Barnes rerouted power to different systems as battle conditions changed, something Zephyrian engineering could never do safely. The rigid alien designs required perfect balance, but human modifications allowed for constant adaptation. Shields could be boosted for defense, or weapons could be overcharged for attack as the situation demanded. 3 more Zephyrian ships fell to the Phoenix's unpredictable assault pattern. The alien commanders tried to adapt their tactics, but they were trained to fight enemies who followed logical patterns. Humans fought with creativity and intuition that made no sense to alien minds. Dr. Alex Kim discovered that the Phoenix's quantum signature was interfering with Zephyrian targeting systems. The human modifications had changed the ship's quantum field in ways that confused alien sensors. The Phoenix appeared to be in several places at once, making accurate targeting impossible. Amy Foster exploited this advantage by weaving unpredictable flight patterns that seemed to defy physics. The Phoenix moved like a living thing rather than a mechanical construct, responding to her instincts in ways that no alien pilot could predict or counter. Supreme Admiral Turville ordered his remaining ships to form a defensive circle and wait for the Phoenix to attack. He hoped to use concentrated firepower to overwhelm the human ship when it came within range. But Jake Morrison had no intention of fighting the battle on Zephyrian terms. The Phoenix attacked from above the orbital plane, coming down on the alien formation like a striking hawk. Lisa Barnes had modified the ship's weapons to fire in patterns that created overlapping fields of destruction. The concentrated alien formation became a liability as their own ships blocked each other's firing. Solutions. 2 more Zephyrian vessels were destroyed in the Phoenix's overhead assault. The survivors broke formation in panic, their perfect discipline shattered by an enemy that refused to fight according to established rules of space combat. Colonel Pete Collins pressed the attack, using the ship's superior speed to hunt down scattered alien vessels. Each enemy ship that tried to flee was caught and destroyed by weapons that could adjust their targeting faster than alien defensive systems could respond. Supreme Admiral Turville found himself commanding only 4 ships from his original fleet of 12. The primitive human vessel had destroyed 8 Zephyrian warships, using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The aliens had been outfought by creativity they could not understand. In desperation, Turville challenged Jake Morrison to single combat between their flagships. The alien admiral hoped that superior firepower and armor would triumph over human trickery in a direct confrontation. The Eternal Glory was twice the size of the Phoenix and carried enough weapons to destroy a moon. Jake Morrison accepted the challenge without hesitation. He ordered the surviving Zephyrian ships to withdraw, while the 2 flagships faced each other in the space between Earth and its moon. The fate of both species would be decided by the outcome of this duel. Amy Foster maneuvered the Phoenix to face the Eternal Glory in what appeared to be a traditional confrontation between capital ships. But appearance meant nothing when humans were involved. The real battle was about to begin, and it would be fought with weapons the Zephyrians had never imagined. The final test of human ingenuity was at hand. The two flagships faced each other in the darkness of space like ancient warriors preparing for single combat. The Eternal Glory stretched nearly 3 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull bristling with enough firepower to reduce worlds to ash. Supreme Admiral Turval commanded from a bridge that had overseen the conquest of 40 star systems. The Phoenix appeared small by comparison, but Admiral Jake Morrison knew that size meant nothing when human determination was involved. His ship had been built by aliens who valued perfection above all else, then rebuilt by humans who understood that adaptation was more important than flawless design. Amy Foster held the Phoenix steady as both ships charged their primary weapons. The space between Earth and Moon became a stage for a confrontation that would determine whether humanity remained free or became another subject species in the Zephyrian Empire. Supreme Admiral Turval fired first, unleashing the full power of weapons that had shattered planetary defenses across the galaxy. Crimson energy beams capable of melting mountains struck the Phoenix's shields with enough force to vaporize any ship in the Zephyrian fleet. But Lisa Barnes had not built ordinary shields. Her hybrid technology absorbed the alien attack and converted the energy into power for the Phoenix's own systems. The human ship emerged from the assault stronger than before, its weapons now charged beyond their normal capacity. Jake Morrison ordered return fire, and the Phoenix responded with weapons that fought for themselves. Colonel Pete Collins had programmed them to learn from enemy tactics in real time, adapting their attack patterns faster than alien defensive systems could adjust. The Eternal Glory shields flared under the unexpected assault. Turval had expected his superior firepower to overwhelm the smaller ship quickly, but the Phoenix's weapons were striking with precision that his computers could not explain. Each shot found weaknesses that should not have existed. Dr. Alex Kim made a discovery that changed the entire battle. The Eternal Glory was fighting exactly as Zephyrian doctrine demanded, with calculated precision and overwhelming force. But the ship's rigid systems could not adapt to unexpected tactics. Every response was programmed. Every maneuver followed established patterns. Amy Foster realized that she could use this predictability against her enemy. She began flying the Phoenix in patterns that seemed random, but were actually designed to force the Eternal Glory into predetermined responses. Each Zephyrian countermove was anticipated and turned into a trap. The alien flagship's weapons were more powerful than anything on the Phoenix, but they were designed to fight enemies who followed logical tactical doctrines. Amy's flight patterns made no sense according to military theory, which meant the Eternal Glory's targeting computers could not predict where the Phoenix would be from one moment to the next. Lisa Barnes achieved something that Zephyrian engineers had declared impossible. She successfully integrated human emotion-driven decision-making with alien logical processing. The Phoenix began to respond to its crew's instincts and feelings, becoming more than just a ship operated by humans. The vessel developed a personality of its own, fighting with the creativity and determination of its human crew while maintaining the technological superiority of its alien construction. It became truly alive in ways that pure Zephyrian technology could never achieve. Supreme Admiral Turval grew desperate as his perfect tactics failed against human unpredictability. He ordered the Eternal Glory to ram the Phoenix, hoping that superior mass would succeed where superior firepower had failed. The alien flagship accelerated toward its target with the fury of a wounded predator. Amy Foster saw the attack coming and made a decision that violated every principle of space combat. Instead of evading the larger ship, She accelerated the Phoenix directly toward the eternal glory. The two vessels rushed toward each other like ancient knights charging with LANCES. At the last possible moment, Amy triggered Dr. Alex Kim's most dangerous modification. The Phoenix partially phased out of normal space, using quantum technology that the Zephyrians had never dared to attempt. The ship became ghost-like, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The eternal glory passed through the Phoenix's position, but the human ship was no longer entirely there. Amy had timed the maneuver perfectly, allowing the alien flagship to commit to an attack that left it completely vulnerable. The Phoenix rematerialized behind the eternal glory and fired every weapon at point-blank range. The alien ship's rear shields, designed to deflect distant attacks, could not handle the concentrated firepower from such close proximity. The eternal glory's entire aft section erupted in flames that could be seen from Earth. Supreme Admiral Turval's perfect ship began to break apart under damage that its rigid construction could not accommodate. Zephyrian technology was too inflexible to handle catastrophic failure. Systems that should have compensated for damage instead shut down entirely when they detected imperfection. The eternal glory drifted helplessly as its command systems failed one by one. Turval had spent his entire career believing that Zephyrian superiority was absolute and eternal. Now he watched his flagship die because human adaptability had triumphed over alien perfection. Jake Morrison opened a communication channel to the crippled alien vessel. He offered to rescue Turval and his crew, showing the mercy that Zephyrian doctrine would never have permitted. The human admiral explained that Earth wanted peace, not conquest. The surviving Zephyrian ships retreated immediately when their flagship fell. They carried news of the impossible defeat back to an empire that had never known failure. The report that a single human ship had destroyed most of a Zephyrian battle fleet would shock the galaxy, but the victory's consequences reached far beyond Earth. Other alien civilizations that had suffered under Zephyrian rule heard about humanity's triumph. If humans could defeat the Empire's finest fleet, then perhaps the Zephyrians were not invincible after all. Within months, rebellions began on dozens of worlds that had been conquered by the Empire. Species that had accepted Zephyrian dominance for centuries suddenly remembered what freedom meant. The galaxy erupted in revolution, with humans as the unlikely inspiration for universal liberation. President Carter authorized the construction of more ships, using the hybrid human Zephyrian technology that Lisa Barnes had developed. Earth shipyards began producing vessels that combined the best of both species' engineering, creating a fleet that exceeded anything in galactic history. Dr. Rodriguez established Earth's interstellar diplomatic corps, reaching out to alien civilizations that wanted to join the growing rebellion against Zephyrian tyranny. Humanity became the center of a galactic alliance based on cooperation rather than conquest. Lisa Barnes led teams of engineers to liberated worlds, sharing human innovations with species that had been forbidden to improve their technology under Zephyrian rule. The galaxy experienced a technological renaissance as creative thinking replaced rigid doctrine. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Phoenix 6 months after the battle, watching Earth's new fleet prepare for its next mission. The ship that had been abandoned as worthless scrap now served as the flagship of humanity's expanding presence among the stars. Amy Foster piloted the Phoenix away from Earth toward their next destination, a system where an oppressed species had requested help overthrowing their Zephyrian overlords. The ship moved through space with the confidence of a vessel that had proven itself in battle. The Phoenix was no longer just a symbol of human ingenuity. It had become a beacon of hope for every species that refused to accept oppression. The worthless alien scrap had been transformed into something that would reshape the galaxy. Dr. Alex Kim monitored the quantum drive as they entered hyperspace, marveling at how far they had come from that first day in the Nevada desert. Human determination had taken alien perfection and made it into something greater than either species could have achieved. Alone, the ship that had been abandoned because it was broken had become the tool that broke an empire built on the belief that some species were superior to others. The Zephyrians had learned too late that wisdom and creativity were more valuable than technological perfection. As the Phoenix disappeared into hyperspace, carrying its message of hope to distant worlds, Jake Morrison reflected on the irony of their success. The aliens' greatest mistake had not been abandoning their ship on Earth. Their greatest mistake had been underestimating the species they left it with. Humanity had taken their worthless gift and used it to prove that freedom and creativity could triumph over tyranny and rigid thinking. The stars themselves had become the stage for human determination, and the galaxy would never be the same.